This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Goals with Soul. Today, I am Joanna Ingram. And today is a little bit of an unusual episode in that I am being interviewed. And this came about in an interesting way. 2 ways, in fact. One way is an inspiration I had about creating ease. And the other is an inspiration about how to get the best of yourself. And interestingly, both of these ideas have come from my own podcast guests. So I interviewed 7-figure entrepreneur Nick James back in episode 95. And he explained to me how very frequently when he's interviewed, he repurposes those interviews into his own podcast episodes. And being one who likes ease, I was like, smart. I like that. But it wasn't something I particularly deployed at that point. I was having such a run of having amazing guests come onto my show. And indeed, I've still got a lovely long list of beautiful offers for future guest appearances. And I hadn't really thought enough about it, but it was there in the back of my mind. And then secondly, it cropped up when I was interviewing and was interviewed by the lovely Kristy Yoder. Kristy specializes in delegation, and I interview her in episode 107. So you can drop in there if delegation is something you really need to enhance and listen to her pearls of wisdom. But one thing that she really showed me, aside from how I can delegate more, is that sometimes we don't do ourselves the best service when we simply put ourselves out there without being prompted to push ourselves to really share what we do in more detail. And Kristy was one of the first interviewers to ask me questions that really pushed my boundaries, really made me think hard. The exact way that coaches should be crafting their brand proposition into their unique and special message. And it was at the end of that interview, I was like, damn, that's what I've been meaning to say in that way, a whole lot more than I have. And when you express yourself, whether that's via a podcast, or in your social media, or in email, and the many other ways that you can show up, sometimes it's easy to just go 50% of the way there, to just share some of it, but almost feel like, who am I to do this? Or a level of arrogance if I dare to really say the extent of my beliefs in this area, or the extent that I have the confidence that this transition, if you work with me, I'm going to do for you. And I see this so many times in my clients and other coaches. And on that day, I saw it in myself too. And I said a little pledge, which was, I'm going to share this interview on Goals with Soul, where Kristy interviews me. And it's a particularly important piece because there's no time to waste in getting your unique brand message out into the world. When you differentiate from the crowd and you allow your brand proposition to really speak the truth about who you are, what you do, how you help, who you help, that's when you get that full-bodied hell yes from people that see your content. People will start engaging with you. Ideal clients will come towards you. Your business energy will completely change. So I know that this is important for you to hear today. So I'm excited to share this with you. Let's dive in.
All right. Well, hey, in today's episode, I got Jo Ingram, and Jo actually interviewed me for her podcast show, and I talked about delegation. So today, the table has turned. I am now going to interview Jo about brand messaging and how to create a unique value proposition for your business. So, Jo, before we dig deeper on how we can create a unique value proposition, educate us about brand messaging. What is brand messaging and why you think that is important for us to have in our business?
What a great first question. Right. Let's dive in. So, what tends to happen before people ask the question, even about brand messaging, is that they just start doing all the things, right? So, in the coaching space, for example, that I occupy, people are throwing money at Facebook ads and they're spending money on these big online programs, which seem to have the promise of being able to solve all the problems and help your business flow. Or their alternative is spending hours figuring out what to say on social media. And, as solopreneurs and as entrepreneurs, we've got all of those things to do. And oftentimes people get to the brand messaging side a little late. They throw something together and they just go, well, look, this is what I do. And I've got a vague idea of who I do it for. And I'm just going to get going. And sometimes people can even have some success at first. But we work in such a crowded industry. So many people now, more than ever since the pandemic and since, the great resignation, people are coming in droves online into coaching, into service-based businesses. And really, when you stand up in a position of showing other people what you do, your brand messaging is what speaks for you. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are, what amazing transformations you can create. If you're not transmitting that through what you say and what you do, usually online, you're not really giving yourself an opportunity for people to truly understand why they should work with you rather than the many other people who proclaim to be doing something similar in your crowded niche.
So that's really good. And I think for some people, when they hear the word brand, they think about those bigger brands like Coca-Cola or Nike, So what is a brand?
Oh, what a great question. Right. So I worked in advertising agencies and media agencies in London for nearly 20 years. And I completely understand the perception that brands are multi-million pound advertisers because I ran their media spend for many, many years and worked on the big questions for brands like Microsoft and Johnson & Johnson about what exactly we're trying to transmit to people and encourage them to buy more, right? But as personal brands, which is what we mostly are, the questions are not that dissimilar. When you think about what you stand for and really why people should work with you, why they buy into you, the questions aren't really different at all. It really takes us back to our values and it takes us back to what our mission is, what we're here to do and create, how we can inspire and help people rise to their greatest potential. And when you realize that as a personal brand, you have every bit as much right to occupy that space and as much responsibility to provide that for yourself, for your business, and very much so for those people who are out there that need the help that only you can give.
Right. So pretty much what makes up a brand is what you stand for. What are your beliefs? What are your values? The things that are important for you. Okay, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of businesses that are running paid ads on social media, but they don't know who they really are. As a business, they don't know their branding. So when do they come to a point where they realize that they don't have a brand messaging? Like how do they wake up from that mess or from that wrong belief that they got everything covered while in reality they're running ads but people don't really know what they're doing?
Yeah. So how do they know that they've got a brand messaging problem?
Yeah.
Usually crops up in one of two ways, and oftentimes both. One is the tangible real life results that suggest that you need to go back to the foundational messaging aspect. So if you're running ads and you're not getting the results, you're running ads and people are coming to your webpage or they're coming to your Instagram profile, and yet it's not translating into the call to action that you desire, whether that's bringing people onto a discovery call or having people click on your sales page. If those things aren't happening, what's the disconnect? And oftentimes you might have even written some half decent ad copy that's people are like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. And they get there and there's just a disconnect. So there's tangible evidence that something isn't working, but it can also come from inside. Oftentimes people will realize that even though they might be having some success and making some money in their business, something just isn't aligned for them about their brand messaging. particularly now, many of us heart-centered, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, we're constantly working on ourselves. We're doing the inner work, we're developing, we're expanding. And sometimes we've created propositions, messaging, offers that we've left behind with the inner work. And we've started to work with clients who no longer meet us where we need to be when it comes to being inspired, being lit up. And suddenly things feel off. Those offers that used to excite you so much, that used to just want to show up and sell, feel like chewed up old chewing gum. You're kind of like, I just don't really want to teach that. I feel called in a slightly different direction. And that's when that alignment of your mission and message just can be dialed so much more deeply into really what you do in your business. Because our energy is everything, right?
Yeah.
When we show up, and we're selling, we're transforming. If we're lit up and inspired by what we do and the people that we work with, there's an energy there that makes you feel lit up every day and creates this transformation in our clients that you really can't fake if the offers, the messaging that you're really putting out there, even if there's some success there in making money, isn't really creating that energetic alignment that you need to do a job and run a business. That is the reason that you wanted to in the first place. You know, we all wanted to feel lit up, love it, and feel passionate. We moved out of corporate, we moved out of day jobs. This is the reason why we have to look at our messaging and really explore what part of ourselves is missing.
I love that. And you know what? I think most business owners, especially when they are just starting out, because they're not educated properly on brand messaging, I think what they do is they look up their competitors, like they look up like, let's say 3 to 5 competitors, and they will look at their messaging on their website, and they tend to copy those messaging that their competitors have because they just want to run their business immediately and they want to launch a website immediately. So I think most business owners do those things, and that's why what you're doing, Joe, is very important because you are educating people, specifically business owners. Hey, you should not do that because you are different, you are unique, you have different beliefs and values as compared to your competitions. And also, you shouldn't copy your competition's brand messaging because you have to stand out. You know, you have to always ask yourself what separates you from your competition. And I think that's something that we're also going to discuss. So let's say I'm a business owner and I was running ads and I did not see results that I was expecting, and it's mainly because my messaging on my website is not clear. My value proposition is not clear, and my target audience is not also clear on my website. And so what do I do now to create a unique value proposition for my business?
Absolutely. And there are steps that you have to go through quite methodically to make sure that you've really understood the foundation about what you are, who you work for, what you do, how you help, and all those questions. The way I like to approach it is I start out with the you in the business. And too frequently, particularly when it comes to running businesses, people say, go out in the market, find what people want, do that and make money. The problem is it kind of leaves you out of the equation. And I'm a firm believer in finding joy in what you do every day. You know, as a veteran of nearly 20 years in corporate, I experienced what it was like for far too long working in a business that didn't light me up, that I didn't feel aligned with. As much as I enjoyed some aspects of the work and the marketing side, the culture and a lot of the service-based values were not aligned. So the first thing is look at yourself. And I like to dive into what I call my brand epics method. And we dive into 5 key aspects of ourselves. We look at E is for experience, P is for pain, I is for interest, C is for character, and S is for skills. And those 5 aspects of ourselves can be dialed up and focused on in different ways, and everybody's different. And the pain, that's one I'd like to talk about just for a second, because it's something that's so important and so often overlooked, is really the pain points and problems, the struggles that you've been through in your life, in your work, and you've been able to overcome this and indeed help others do that too. And I think oftentimes people suppress the authenticity of their own journey and try and just show up as a guru, a finished article. One of the side effects of the cookie cutter coaching problem or the cookie cutter business copycats, where you just go out and you say, oh, there's a leader in my industry, I will just have messaging like that. Well, it doesn't really express your journey, your why it is that you're the right person to help. And the interesting thing, and too many people forget this, is that there are lots of potential clients out there. You know, we often come to things in a quite a scarcity mindset where we think we're in competition with all the other people in our niche. And the reality is that people will work with you because they feel called and resonant with your message. And we like to work with people that have some commonalities, that understand us in some way. And only by being unique and being very authentic in your messaging can you give people the opportunity to see that you're their person and not even the leader in the industry. People will, instead of choosing to work with the best, they would rather work with someone who, yes, has proven results and has expertise in the field, but actually gets where they're coming from, understands them, may only be a couple of steps ahead, but those are the important and critical steps that that person wants as their results at that time.
Yeah, that is really good. And I like that you said that you also need to process and to know what are the things that you've went through, your pain points, your personal pain point, and how you can use that to help your audience. Because nowadays, people are so focused on resolving other people's pain points. So you start with you yourself. So what's next after that?
So after that, it's an opportunity to focus on your aligned avatar. This is your ideal, perfect, I like to call them soul clients. And this isn't a person that will pay you. Let's be really, really clear. Sure, you can go surface level and just say, who will pay me? But what tends to happen when you're in that mindset is that your messaging will reflect your disinterest in the specifics of who's going to work with you. And if you're lucky enough to get clients with that messaging, it's a bit of pot luck about whether really they're going to be the right clients for you. And what happens when you work with people who aren't really your ideal clients? Well, firstly, they may not get the transformation that you're promising, which clearly isn't going to be right for them, but it's also not right for you. As a business owner, service provider, coach, consultant, and so on, you want your clients to get results. You want glowing testimonials. You want flowing referrals. You want that energy in your business. So it is of no benefit to pick up clients that really aren't going to achieve and succeed. And as I mentioned earlier, personally, I had this experience when I first came out of corporate and I asked myself, who should I be working with? And I looked at my personal qualities and I realized that I was productive and I was driven and I was action taking was what I identified at the time. And I thought, well, who needs to work with a person like that? And I thought, people who aren't like that need to work with a person like that. So I put myself out in the market to help entrepreneurs who really needed accountability and were struggling to achieve anything against a deadline. They weren't even setting themselves deadlines. Now, whilst I was successful in bringing clients into my business who resonated with that message, they were quite low energy. And I would hit them with my big, big energy. And for a little while, I could carry them along on that wave of productivity. But very soon after, if not immediately, when I finished working with them, they would drop back again. And I would be so saddened by the fact that they only made small gains. And the reality was that I wasn't meant to work with people like that. Because in addition, I felt really weary by it. I was like, oh no, what do I need to do? And I was taking on all this like mothering quality. Oh, well, let me do it for you. And, how can I help you more? Which, isn't an empowering coachee situation. So then I gave myself the opportunity. It was a real gift to say, who are my real soul clients? And I realized, as many people do when they do this exploration, that your soul clients are oftentimes just like you in many respects. And actually, my clients now who I help with brand messaging are, in the most part, highly driven, high achieving, type A, female, ex-corporate oftentimes. And they're just like, I just want to get it done. I overwork, I overburn, I suffer burnout, I keep overproving, I feel like an imposter, I fear judgment. And I'm like, well, that's where I started. So let's talk. Because when it comes to efforting versus ease and learning, masculine energy versus feminine flow, that was my journey in the first year to 18 months of my business. So those people that now start working with me, we've got that synergy. And that's only come about because I talk about this in my messaging. It's a big part of my journey and who I am. And this is what I really encourage people and teach clients to do, is to find that authenticity and to bring through, even with vulnerability, the struggles that they've had and the ways in which they've overcome it, to help people who are really perfectly matched for them. And when they start chatting, they're like, oh my gosh, I'd have a coffee with you, like irrespective of this client relationship. If I came across you at a party, we'd be hanging out chatting, because there's just that vibe between us. And who wouldn't want to work with clients like that, right?
I like that you use the words align avatar. I like the word align because that means you're aligned, with your vision, values, and, just what you're doing. It's something that your target audience wants as well. Like, for instance, yourself already, your align avatar. How are you going to put that on your website? Like, let's say I'm going to create a headline on my website, so what key elements should I consider to put on my website headline?
Okay, now look, there are lots of ways of approaching this. And the truth is that when we look at personal alignment, the way that one person approaches it will not be the way that somebody else approaches it. And both can be successful. But I would advise anyone that literally has no idea where to go with this is to create a brand messaging statement for themselves. And brand messaging statement is very, very simple. It simply reflects what you do, who you do it for, and sometimes how you do it. So as an example, I help ambitious female coaches to create unique messaging so they can attract soul clients. Pretty simple, but in that one statement, I've managed to explain exactly who I help, how I do it, and the result that they can expect. And if simply putting that on your website is going, or indeed in your Instagram bio, or wherever people first make contact with you, allows people to instantly self-select that, yes, that's the result I need. And this is the person that works with people like me. And I like the whole vibe here. So just be really, really clear and really simple in expressing how you help. Also, just within that, just to point out, I've been careful about some of the words that I've selected. So, for example, I've used the word soul client because the way that I work is very much about strategy combined with energy. Like you mentioned, goals with soul. It's that duality, that masculine and feminine, goals and soul, and strategies and energy. So I use the word soul because a lot of people that I work with really enjoy the element of energetic work. Like, I'm a breathwork facilitator and I work in my group program. Yes, creating strategy and producing messaging, but also doing energy work like breathwork. So it's important that if it's possible, you express in that statement words that people are going to just shortcut their understanding about the sorts of way that you might work with them.
That is really good. So when you do your brand statement should answer the what, the who, and the how. And that's simple. So is this something, creating your brand messaging and knowing your unique value proposition, is this something that a business owner can do alone? Or is this something that you have to delegate to somebody else? Like you're an expert, in this kind of topic.
Look, I believe that you do what you are capable and inclined to do. So if even simply listening to what this conversation's giving you today gives you the energy and the motivation and the ideas to go out and make improvements, you can absolutely do that. I think the reality comes when we turn to the busy work and we start doing all the things, and some of the most critical things get left on the back burner. And messaging is a very easy one to say, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I must get on to that. And you start finding other things like, I'll join a program to teach me how to be a better email marketer. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll join a program over here that teaches funnels. No, hang on a minute. You just keep going because there's so much to learn, right?
Yeah.
And then you keep asking yourself why things aren't working as well as you would wish. And like we mentioned earlier, those signs and signals that things aren't working. And I find that when you do work with an expert, what you're doing is you're actually partnering with a thought partner, with a co-creator that's going to come at it from an expert place that can just unlock it for you and create something that you would have really struggled to do yourself. One of my clients said something beautiful. Actually, last week, she said to me, you've just articulated what's on my heart. And I think that that's the truth for a lot of us, is that we kind of know what we feel and what we want to transmit, but we just can't seem to transmit it. We can't get the words out. We can't articulate it. And working with someone that has the ability to bring that out of you and to sort of channel the words and the feelings that you really want to convey to your ideal clients, well, it's priceless. It's one of those things that as a business owner, once you've got that nailed, you can move on to do everything else with more effectiveness.
Yeah. So you are now a team of 4. When did you realize that you need to add team members to your business?
Well, it's a bit like I mentioned earlier about getting busy doing all the things. I'm not saying that from a high almighty position of observing others. I'm saying that because that was exactly what I've done myself, and sometimes still do, because when you're competent and when you're enthusiastic, you kind of just get your finger in all the pies and you're like, I can build a funnel, and I really want to master my own email marketing. I can do that. And you start getting excited and getting distracted, but before too long, you start getting overwhelmed, which is something that I had experienced before I then had burnout, because I was doing all the things. I launched 3 programs, started a membership, started my podcast. I mean, the list just went on and on and on of everything that I tried to do in that first 6 months. But then now I understand that actually getting people around to support me and having that spaciousness to focus on those things that mean the most to my business has been absolutely transformative. And I think that it was only when I'd experienced that burnout and gone back to basics, and like, I didn't burn my business to the ground, but I did strip away a lot of what was going on. And that's when my messaging clarity really started dropping in, because I had the space to really think about, what do I add? What am I bringing? What are my unique talents? You know, with all these years working in marketing and media and having a passion, but also my own experiences in denying a lot of who I was. And some people describe it as woo-woo, but the reality is that I was becoming increasingly spiritual in my approach. And yet I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about productivity and accountability, but really I wanted to talk about manifesting, and I wanted to talk about flow. And so in my own podcast, that's when I started to just talk about this stuff. And I just said, you know what, I'm just going to share it. And before long, I got clarity. I was like, actually, I'm a person that spans both, and that's who I want to be. That's what lights me up. And I've just got to get over the fear of judgment and the imposter syndrome that came along with that, and step into my new reality. That is me now, not me one day, me now. And something incredible happened, I think, about a month or 2 after I started sharing about my manifesting journey at the time, because I did not see myself as an expert. I got this lovely message from a regular listener who said, when are you going to hold a manifesting workshop? Because I really want to know more about this stuff. And I was like, a manifesting me? Seriously? But really it was a light bulb moment, because it enabled me to see that actually the power of creating messaging and stepping in and owning what you're passionate about and having a mission and a way of approaching things is really what changes everything in your business. And the energy shifted soon after that. But to your point, Kristy, if I hadn't have had the support to enable me to get that thinking space, I think it would have been almost impossible to make that leap.
That is so good. So I'm glad to hear that, adding team members to help you support your business has done incredible wonders for you personally and professionally. So tell us how you help business owners succeed in their brand messaging.
Okay. Well, I work with clients in my group program, Time to Rise. It's a program where people get the opportunity to really work with me in a very unique way, because we blend energy and breath work with the pure strategy of message creation. But we also work on how to identify your soul clients, how to create your signature offer, and how to create energetic content. But also, I've recently launched the Messaging Edge, which works with more elevated coaches who already they're 6 figures or thereabout, but their messaging isn't resonating with them anymore. And they're ready to just elevate themselves and their clients by getting their messaging honed and working on their uniqueness. And really elevating their brilliance.
I love that because you don't only help people who don't know what their brand messaging is, but you also help people who feels like their brand messaging are not resonating with them anymore. For a year, you may have this kind of brand statement, but after a couple of years, it may change because people change all the time. We change through our experiences and through the people that we meet. So I love that you help people in different stages of where they are when it comes to their brand messaging. So where can people find you online, Joe?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is at iamjoe.ingram. And you can find me through my podcast, Goals with Soul, as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining me here today. I learned a lot from you, and I'm sure that our listeners are going to be learning a lot from this episode as well. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Kristy. Now, if you are feeling the same level of passion to share your mission and bring your unique brilliance out, speak your truth and craft a brand message, and it's your time to share this message and shine, I have 2 ways in which we can work together this month. I've got 4 spaces opened in my group program, Time to Rise, where we craft the most beautiful sisterhood and energizing community, where our unique messaging shines through and you learn the tools, techniques, and energy to build your coaching business with ease. And I have just 1 space open in my one-to-one Messaging Edge Illuminator program, undivided co-creation energy to craft your unique brilliance so it infuses and activates in your epic offers and your energizing content. If you feel called to explore working with me further, you can jump into a clarity call with me by going into the show notes and clicking on the link. And I'm looking forward to speaking with you. And so to your inspired action, take care. Bye now.